Hey, what's up, Archons? It's Boulevard Paper Fight here, bringing you a video going over an analysis of two decks that I used yesterday when I took down a Survivor Sealed tournament. Was able to go 5-1, only losing once, obviously, with this in the second round with a deck that I first kind of evaluated as being the lesser of the two, but by no means a bad deck. So I'm just gonna go right into it and go through my process of how I chose the two decks and what I looked through them for to analyze where the strengths could be and why I should choose that deck. So I'm just gonna go right into it. First up, we have Cauldron, the Overconfidently Mysterious. And this is a Logos Untamed Dis deck. And I have it in order of how I saw it the other day. And so how I basically did it was I just looked at the cards, and the very first thing I did was I just counted the Ember, the raw Ember. So this has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9 bonus Ember in this deck. That was step 1. And step 2 is then I started looking at how many creatures there were. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So there's 24 creatures in here. So really high creature count. And then after that, I started looking at, okay, what are the ways I can put people off Ember here? So right off, I was looking at, like, cool to see the key charge. I was excited about the Desanya. Same with the Eurekas for bursting. Putting people off Ember. And then Pip sort of counts because it's a repaid, so they can't get Ember as fast, but it's not putting them off. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot in this. That was one of the things that I realized. Anguish was the one that could actually put them off keys, and it wasn't the most reliable. So double Schuler, that is essentially the best way for me to put people off keys, was having 2 Schuler. So that was a bit of an issue with this deck. The next thing I was looking at was how am I going to deal with creatures? So there was great artifact like dealing here. There was 3 Rustnars, the Poltergeist, and yeah, so that's kind of where I was looking at. And then there's Poke and 3 Fates. There's the Poltergeist. And that pretty much did it for removal. So there wasn't a lot of creature removal, but due to the high creature count, it wasn't as big a concern because I could just use the creatures to remove any real big threats. And I mean, there's things like the Overlord Grekking, which is just as soon as it hits the table, it has to be dealt with. I think this is my first deck actually with an Overlord Grekking. So yeah, that happened. The next thing I really liked about this deck was there's good deck manipulation, the ability to archive and do different things to set up turns. So one was, I really like the Emberspine Mongrel put in work. It was really cool. People had to deal with it, and when you have that in here, it just creates an issue. And then I did a turn where I threw out a Bumblebird afterwards, so it became a 5 power creature, which became a lot harder to deal with. And that happened, and to great effect. And then you can even throw something like a Camouflage on it, so then you can limit the creatures that can actually go into it. There's a lot of actually archive hate in here, for, I guess not a lot, but more than usual. You have the Tantadillion. There was the Desanya, which was really cool. It's my first AoE deck with Desanya. And I believe that was everything from the archives. Yeah, that was all the archive stuff. So that was kind of what I was looking at, and I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. Song of Spring, I don't think is that great. One way that I like to use Song of Spring was actually to play a Bumblebird the following turn. Like I would sometimes just use something like a Lab Work to archive something like a Bumblebee if that's what was in hand, and there wasn't a lot of other like really good options, because I would think, okay, archive Bumblebee, Bumblebird, and then next turn I can even just play out, it's not sitting in my hand, play out something like Emberspine Mongrel, drop the Bumblebird the following turn, boosting Emberspine, and hopefully had a couple other untames, and then do something like a Song of Spring to just put Bumblebird back into the deck, because I felt like it was a bit of a weak point when it was on the field. And there were some people running Coda decks as well as, actually I think there was only a couple, but you were basically allowed in this sealed tournament to choose AOA or Coda because they're both considered legal formats. So we had a person with some Coda decks, and that made me think, okay, you got to watch out for some of the steal through dealing damage. Well, I believe it's in both anyways. So I didn't want the Bumblebird being an easy target. So I just shuffled it back in the deck so I could pull it out and get its effect at a future time. Yeah, so this deck was the one I first went with, and I lost in round 2 with it. Really liked Eureka in this. The Eureka actually was, I was surprised how powerful it was. I had quite a few Logos cards in hand, had 3 Ember, just played this one in check, and the other ones put me a little bit over. Was really great, and it set up a following turn. And then there's also, on the disc side, Poltergeist was obviously really powerful. And yeah, that pretty much summed up the deck here. So, it wasn't bad, but it didn't like totally wow me, but I thought for sealed, it's pretty good, and it had a really nice creature count to deal with things, so it was actually a lot of fun to play. And the round I lost was actually against an opponent who conceded in like the 3rd turn when no keys were forged. I wasn't like instantly going to forge. He literally misplayed a sequence and decided he wasn't going to play anymore. And this is like a friendly environment where I play. It wasn't hugely competitive. Well, we do have some high competitors, but I mean, there was only a 10-person tournament, and we know each other. So it felt bad that he was just going to like have that bad attitude and just quit basically because he misplayed once. So I convinced him not to do that, and to my detriment, he ended up going on and winning because the deck ran out of gas with what happened with the board state and everything. So just lesson learned, don't give up too early or easily in this game. A lot can happen really fast, and come from behind victories are not a rare thing. So just keep that in mind. Don't give up. Always play everything out. It's just respect for your opponent as well to not just do that. And I just wanted to have a good time, and we actually play out and have fun with the decks, and I didn't want him to quit. And then he ended up winning, and it was, I think, a good lesson for everyone all around. Now going on to the deck that was my second deck that I looked at too, and the deck that went the furthest. So again, I did the same thing. Counted the Ember. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 14 bonus Ember. That's a very nice number. Then next I counted creatures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So 18 creatures, not a bad number at all. And then lastly, I started looking at Ember Control. So Customs Office, which is a nice little artifact hate, actually does somewhat count, because people have to either think about giving me Ember when they're playing their Customs Office, or they have to just straight up lose one. So that's one way. It's not, I don't have as much control of that, but it's always good. Bren the Fanatic is a good one. Yancey, Miasma, Life for Life obviously goes great with Brend. Take Hostages, not super effective. Maruk the Mark. This was pretty much my engine for dealing with creatures. With Ember Control. This guy put in so much work, especially when I'm throwing down the double protect the weaks on it. So he has 3 armor. It was just gross. So I literally just swing into things that have essentially 3 power and just take them out and then capture 3. It works so good. And then you have the 2 Abods to also capture. And then here, I don't think there was anything in Logos. No. Nothing in Logos. All right, so that was it. So some decent stuff that is spread out between everywhere but Logos. Brand actually was really powerful, although I did have someone straight up just, I did not think this through, and they collector wormed my Brand, which was sweet because they just basically got a free Ember. And then next off, I'm looking at creature removal here. So there is Whistling Darts, which, I mean, this card is not great for total removal, but it did come in super handy. I ended up having a 4 shadows card opening hand. One of them was Miasma, unfortunately. Other one was Whistling Darts. And my opponent started off with a Dusk Witch, so I just straight up followed up with a Whistling Dart. So that was super helpful with a lot of 1-power creatures that do exist and are quite powerful. Then there is Life for a Life, obviously, which is great for triggering Brand as well as taking out a target. What else was here? I mean, I was using Maruk the Mark as just removal as well, and Chell the Safeguard. They both did a lot of work. Entropic Swirl is also a way to do that. A little bit of removal. And that's about it. Now, this deck, I started realizing why it was so powerful and why it kind of went to be my choice of the best deck. And part of that was I found some amazing combos. So one of it was using Life for a Life with Jargoogle was one of the things. So you could just sacrifice Jargoogle, play the card underneath outside a house. But the combo that really put in work for me, I'm just going to pull them out because it was a lot of fun to do. So these 3 cards here were ridiculous. So what I would do is I would play Archimedes, play Jargoogle, choose a card that was at a house to put underneath, and then I would actually Entropic Swirl my own Jargoogle. So I would basically then right away have him get dealt 4 damage, gain 2 Ember, he then gets archived, and I get to play the card underneath, so I was able to house cheat. And then it's in my archive, so I pick him up next turn, put him next to Archimedes again, because there was 2, so the chance of me doing that, and then I kind of just rinse and repeat. And it worked quite well. I was able to pull this off a bunch of times, and it was to great effect because I'm going through my deck faster. I'm getting to play this great, powerful card over and over. I really like Jargoogle, and Archimedes just put in so much work for me. Yesterday, it's not even funny. I was having my opponents were constantly doing things where they were like dealing mass damage, and I was just getting to archive the cards like over and over and just keep playing them, and it was just really powerful. So this deck ended up just being, it was disgusting to play, and I mean, even Sucker Punches. This card I feel is amazing. Having 2 sucks. If I sometimes have 2 in hand, one gets pitched and the other one just gets used. The recursion of this is amazing, especially if you have ways you want to call shadows again. It's really good. You're getting an Ember every time, which is fantastic. And then I had things like Redlock, where I would have a turn where I already had my creatures out on the board for shadows, and I would literally just end up playing actions and then gaining an Ember with Redlock at the end, which was super cool. And one thing that was also really powerful was Hadroth's Wall. It put in a lot of work for me, boosting my creatures, especially Redlock. Getting Skirmish and being a 5-power creature was really nice. And then also it did very well with being put on either the Grey Rider to use that effect and remove stuff. That was really cool. A lot of the times I would even have like Maruk the Mark, and I would just reap the first time and then swing in the next, which was really fun. What else was there that was good? Fila was a little underwhelming. Didn't work as well. I never got to play it first, so that was unfortunate, but it was still great. I mean, card draw is never a bad thing. I did have a game where my opponent had an autocannon, so I literally was fortunate enough to just... Actually, it was kind of a dumb play now that I think about it. I basically put Fila next to Archimedes, so as soon as it came out, it went on the board, then gets dealt damage, then goes into my archive, so I could keep playing it, but it was just stupid because I had no artifact removal, so I ended up just discarding it. And yeah, always, helper bots are always great to go out of house. So I had a lot of ways of house cheating in this deck and utilizing my archives a lot. So that was the Talented Samantha, and it took down the tournament going 4-0. So yeah, that's how I did it, and I won this beautiful Mars mat as well as some Mars keys, and I'll be getting a Mars deck box once they get those in. So I hope this analysis helped you guys, and thanks for tuning in. Please don't hesitate to reach out at Boulevard Paper Fight on Twitter, and also check out some of my other videos, and please hit that subscribe button. Thanks for tuning in.